Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we've got a new Galarian Perrserker card to talk about. And yes, I am still annoyed that it is Galarian Perrserker when the Pokemon is just called Perrserker. I still don't understand why they feel the need to do that in the card game, and it still makes me just a little bit sad. Now, our translation here does come from the lovely Antoine Boulet, as we're kind of accustomed to at this stage. And if we start off with the basics, we got 120 HP, which is... it's not what we're loving, if I'm honest with you. There's a big difference between 120 and 130. There's a lot of Pokemon that hit 120. Having 130 would survive. Having 120 doesn't. That's a bit sad. We do like the retreat cost of 2 because it does at least give you free retreat with Air Balloon. The weakness to fire is not ideal, too many welded X running around, and the resistance to grass is fine. I mean, Rillaboom decks aren't particularly great, but you never know in the future. Zarude V is looking like kind of a cool Pokemon, so you never know. Maybe grass decks get a bit better in the future, and at that stage, maybe the resistance really helps. Do, of course, remember that as a metal Pokemon, you can start using stuff like metal goggles to really give you that protection, especially against these grass decks. Plus, minus 30 from anything. Plus, let's not forget it stops damage counters as well from either abilities or attacks. So you know what? Not a bad thing. And of course, if you really want to go over the top, we've got Lucario and Melmetal, the GX attack that reduces damage done to all of your metal Pokemon by 30, or even Metal Core Barrier. Reduces damage by 70, but only for a single turn. Point is, it's pretty good in terms of reducing damage. In terms of hitting for weakness, honestly, no. There just isn't much around that's weak to metal at the moment. At least nothing particularly relevant. Hey-ho. But we do need to mention... well, actually, we need to mention Metal Saucer. Metal Saucer is really nice for accelerating energy. But we need to mention that this is a Galarian Perrserker, which means we have access to that Galarian Meowth, the one that lets you discard 2 cards from your hand and search for a Galarian Perrserker and put it into your hand, the one that came out in Rebel Clash. And this is absolutely huge because it means you can play this in a basic deck. And you don't need to be mucking about with any kind of cards that search out your evolutions. You can still just go for stuff like Quick Ball, knowing that Galarian Meowth will search this out. So it's a good start, but what does it actually do? Well, the attack that for free energy does 90 damage, we're not loving it and we're not going to spend much time talking about it. Yes, you can use Twin Energy or Triple Acceleration Energy as a non-V, non-GX single prize Pokemon, so that's quite nice, and it's an evolution. Triple Acceleration does fall off at the end of your turn, so you are better off with Twin Energy there. And you can use Metal Saucer, and a combination of Metal Saucer and Twin Energy will pay this in one go. But you're still talking free energy 90 damage. It's just not efficient. Sure, it'll get the odd thing like a Chinchino, but when you're not getting a one-hit KO on something like a Blacephalon, when you're putting free energy on a Stage 1 Pokemon, something's gone a little bit wrong. Maybe if you were hitting for weakness, but having said that, take something like Gardevoir V, which is coming along in the next set. It's pretty good. It sees a fair amount of play, though the weakness of Ashen is also a huge problem. And it's done a bit of winning over in Japan, but you're not even getting a one-hit KO on that. So, no, not loving it. But the first attack we do feel quite a bit differently about. 1 Metal Energy, 20 damage, but you flip 3 coins. If you flipped any heads, you get to look at your opponent's hand, and for each heads you flipped, you get to discard a trainer card that you find there. And this I like very much indeed. This is the kind of attack that can completely and utterly wreck your opponent's hand, bearing in mind that this is the kind of attack that Pokemon have been banning. This is, I can potentially wreck your entire hand. I can leave you with nothing. Because we've still got Chip Ice Axe, that's surviving the rotation. That's the one that lets you rearrange the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. Or I should say, look at the top 3, pick 1 to stay and shuffle the other 2 in. So if you're feeling kind of lucky, oh, I'm going to flip a few heads, I'm going to get rid of the trainers in their hand, you look at their deck and you go, oh, they're about to top deck a Professor's Research. I'd rather they didn't top deck that. So you put something like a random Pokemon they're not going to need, or an energy they're not going to need, or a switching card, or whatever it might be, that they're going to draw into and not be useful. And as long as you can then flip enough heads with this attack, you can wreck their hand, having already made sure they're not going to get a particularly good top deck. I mean, if you really want to go next level with this, and I'm not entirely sure I'm actually suggesting this, but if you do want to go next level with this, how about Orbeetle? Now, it is a stage 2, and that makes it very inconsistent and awkward and all of that, but every turn you get to look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck and put them back in any order. So, admittedly, stage 2 awkward, but imagine constantly getting rid of all of their trainer cards while rearranging the top 3 cards of their deck with Orbeetle, and you could be onto a real hand disruption deck here. And they have been hurting our hand disruption options. A lot of the things that have been so good are being taken away, especially in the expanded format. This can do it. I mean, imagine you play a reset stamp. You put your opponent down to a 3 or 4 card hand, then you use this. Unless they happen to have drawn into the exact Pokemon and or energy that they need, they're in a lot of trouble. Because you can use one of these cards to rearrange the top cards of their deck, and at the same time you can get rid of the trainer cards in their hand and just basically leave them with nothing. And sure, you're only doing 20 damage per turn, but that's where something like Chip Chip Ice Axe or Orbeetle comes in so beautifully. I mean, I know it's super awkward, but the Orbeetle combo here I love, because you essentially get rid of their trainers in their hand, and then you know what they're drawing. Every single turn, you know what they're drawing with Orbeetle. And because you know what they're drawing with Orbeetle, you can make sure that you can get rid of it. If you need to, you can play some kind of reset stamp if they're going to draw something too good. You can attack knowing that they're not going to be able to respond because you know you've gotten rid of all their trainers and you know you've gotten them a bad top deck. And that's kind of my point here. I'm not necessarily saying that what you really want to do here is attack with Galarian Perrserker turn after turn, because you're only doing 20 damage. It's not great. But if you're taking every 3rd or 4th turn to wreck their hand, and then wrecking their top decks with other cards, that'll work. Incidentally, with Orbeetle, you're rearranging the top 3 cards of their deck. There will come a point where actually the top 3 cards of their deck, or the top card of their deck, has to be a good draw. That's where the Ipon from Cosmic Eclipse comes in. Once during your turn, you may put the top card of your opponent's deck on the bottom of their deck without looking at it. But of course, if you've already used Orbeetle's ability, you don't need to look at it. You already know what the top card of their deck is. And sure, maybe it's kind of awkward, but I know there are some people, and I know this because they message me and tell me. Don't stop doing that, by the way. I love hearing from all you lovely ladies and gentlemen. Keep messaging. Twitter @TheWassy. Email. You know the deal. Point is, I know some people are hankering for a proper good hand disruption deck. Well, this could be it. Get rid of 3 cards from their hand, 3 trainer cards, and then with a combination of Orbeetle and Ipom, you can basically stop them top decking something good ever again. That's kind of fancy. Also, there's nothing to stop you playing multiple Ipom if you wanted to go down that route. And let's not forget that though it's banned in Expanded, Jesse and James is not currently banned in Standard, which means that you can play that and your opponent has to discard a couple cards from their hand. So the theory here there is that you use Jesse and James to get rid of a couple cards from their hand, and then you use this. The difficulty, of course, with that is that Jesse and James, your opponent chooses what to discard, and obviously, if they know that you're going to be getting rid of trainer cards, they are just going to get rid of their trainer cards. So as much as I enjoy Jesse and James, I don't think it's going to work in this deck. Now, do remember that you have got Glimwood Tangle here, which will let you reflip. And it should be very, very rare that you flip no heads here. You should be expecting 1 or 2. Every so often you'll hit 3, every so often you'll hit 0. And the problem is hitting 0 could be a huge problem. Of course, the other stadium you want to be thinking about here is Lavender Town, because you can essentially look at their hand before you use this attack. If your opponent's already got a bad hand, don't waste your time. just go straight into one of your other attackers. And maybe this won't work. Maybe this will never be good enough. Maybe we're destined for disappointment with this. Maybe it's too flippy. Maybe it doesn't do enough. Maybe hand disruption isn't good enough. But the fact of the matter is we can get rid of free cards from our opponent's hand. We've got some good options for other stuff to use with it. And there's just too many things about this that make me go, that could be a fun disruption deck. It is the kind of thing I do expect people to be playing along with, because you know what? This one looks fun. They did also reveal a new Galarian Meowth, but I'll be honest with you, it's not the one that lets you search for Galarian Perrserker, so we're never going to use it. I'm giving this one between 3 and 4 Wassies, but don't give half Wassies, that would be barbaric. If you're the kind of person that's been hankering for more disruption cards, this is one you need to start taking kinda seriously. But I would like to know how seriously you're taking it and how excited you are by the prospect of all this hand disruption stuff, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.